the Australian government is planning to introduce a ban on under-16s using social media.
Oh, well done. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, claims it's causing harm to young people's mental health.
So, we're asking this morning, should the UK follow suit? Is it time to get tough on TikTok teens? That's what we're going with today.
Yes. Right, moving on. Let's talk to the leader of Smartphone-Free Childhood, Jennifer Powers, and media coach, Alan Stevens. All right, Alan, I've made my view clear. I don't think it's a good thing for youngsters to be on all this sort of thing. What do you reckon?
Well, no, I agree with you, Stephen. I don't think it is a good idea for young people to be on this sort of thing, but I'm not sure this sort of legislation is actually going to crack it. Teenagers have ways of getting around things. It's actually in their job description to circumvent the rules. They know how to do these things, and no country has actually successfully managed to make this work.
Jennifer, what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's a great idea, but I also think that we need to look at the device, not just social media. And that's why, as a volunteer for Smartphone-Free Childhood, I've been so involved with thousands of parents in my local area and hundreds of thousands across the country to band together to delay smartphone use by our children until they're at least 14, and raising the age of social media and enforcing that age are also really important things that we call on the government to do.
Maybe that's the way, Ellen. Ban smartphones for kids altogether. I mean, do they need them for anything other than texting and calling home?
Well, I mean, you can do that. I mean, I've been a school governor for years. Some schools take the phones away at the start of the day and return them, and some parents restrict use, and there are ways that you can restrict Wi-Fi in your home. So there are things that you can do, of course, but I think the main thing is about education. It's about putting the onus on people to educate their children, for schools to do that, and also for social media companies to take strong steps to limit the sort of stuff they put out there.
Jennifer, what are your concerns about children, because we are talking about children here, on social media that are starting really young? I mean, they're accessing social media sites from 10, 11 years old.
Well, sadly, they're accessing them from much, much younger. And I just want to push back on what Alan said. The onus should not be on parents, and it should not be on children. Children their brains aren't fully developed until they're 25. Why do we have this idea that we should give them something which is toxic and dangerous and then tell them to make good choices? This is not about digital literacy. It is not a fair fight between an 8-year-old on TikTok or Snap and the brightest people in the course of human history who've devised these tech platforms.
Well, Jennifer, that's a very fair point, but why is it not on parents then? They're over 25 in most cases.
Sure. Listen, society changes all the time. We decide where we want to have the rules. And, we don't send children down mines or up chimneys anymore. And as a society, we can choose to come together and decide that social media and smartphones are not products safe for children. Why is it that unlike every other product out there that gets tested for safety before it's launched to the market, why is it with social media and smartphones that they've been put into the market for our young people and children, and 12 years later, we're finding out the horrific mental health impacts and phone addiction and what that's doing to our kids? So I say no. I say we need to reverse that straight away.
Alan, what do you make of that?
Oh, well, Jennifer makes some very good points. In fact, we're probably largely in agreement on a lot of this. But I think the onus is on parents. I'm a parent, and I certainly think it's important that parents do set the rules and do know what their children are doing and help them to come to terms with the sorts of dangers that are out there. There is no question about the awful dangers of social media and networks, but there are also things like WhatsApp, there's Roblox, there's Fortnite. Where does this end? How does a government try to stop access to all sorts of things? This was tried in Louisiana and Utah. And there was a tenfold increase in what are called virtual private networks to get round the rules. So people will always circumvent the rules. I think it's more about knowing what your children are doing and giving them good advice.
It's
I
interesting.
I fundamentally disagree with that. Can I come in?
Yeah.
Because that is... It is the doom and gloom that says we can't do something differently just because we've been doing it a certain way for the past decade. Listen, there is a moral imperative on us to act around this and to put the onus on parents and children when we are crying out for help from government to catch up to where we as parents are, which is calling out for help. Listen, of course there's a role for parents. Of course there is. Smartphone-free childhood has hundreds of thousands of parents who've come together across the country in solidarity to delay when they give their child a smartphone or to put really strong limits in place about the social media they consume. But that's not good enough. And just saying that it's not possible, of course it is. You know, we've done amazing things all the time, every day. We can certainly find out a way to make schools smartphone free. We can decide as a country that we don't want our children to access social media. And I guess I'm more optimistic about the potential of us as a country to figure out a way to deal with this than Alan.
I mean, I do think, Alan, it's one thing to say that young people will find a way around it and VPNs and all the rest of it. And that's happening. I mean, you're absolutely right. But doesn't that just lend strength to the argument to say, well, you can't ban the software, you're going to struggle with software issues, so just ban the hardware?
Well, I don't disagree with that necessarily. I do think restricting phone use is a good idea, but I'd like to just say I am optimistic. I'm an optimistic chap, and I'm optimistic about the use of social media. I think there are many benefits of it. I think communities are forming, children forming friendships across the world. I think there are some very good things about social media, but I think just slapping a ban or trying to slap a ban across the board on certain age limits is not the way to tackle it.
Jennifer, do you see benefits, or do you just think it's a bad idea for anybody under the age of 16?
Well, listen, smartphone-free childhood is not anti-tech. It's not anti-phone, as you alluded to. Children can use brick phones or basic phones. But I have to disagree. Whilst the internet does have benefits for children in a supervised, controlled environment, like at home or at school, I don't see that social media is healthy for kids. I mean, we see the massive increase in anxiety and depression and self-harm amongst our children. From addictive phone use, we have lack of concentration, sleep deprivation. You see a huge increase of cyberbullying. These are real and serious issues, and we haven't even got onto the effect on the labor market and the impact on learning in schools. Did you know that children in smartphone-free schools, because we're talking about smartphone-free places and spaces and times, not necessarily bans here. But did you know that children in schools which have smartphone-free policies that are robustly implemented have better GCSE marks? So this is a really powerful tool to help all of our children.
That's an interesting point. Jennifer, Alan, we've got to leave it there, but good to see you both this morning. Thanks very much indeed. You're getting in touch already on this one. Claudette says, I don't know a single child who can afford a mobile phone or iPad or computer without their parent buying it for them.
And Gail says it's all down to the parents. Parents should simply not buy young children smartphones.
Which I think it's a really valid point. It's a really valid point. It's just if you're one of those parents who's... because there's a lot of peer pressure. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of peer pressure. If you banned it for all kids under 16, you can't have one, then maybe that changes it.
Maybe that's the way forward. Well, do keep those views coming in, gbnews.com/yoursay.
If you are affected by any of this, because I mean, this seems ridiculous, but some children, because of social media and all the rest of it, are getting their mental health and things really badly affected. This is the worry. Anyway, the Samaritans are available should you need them. 24-hour helpline, 116 123.